What's the best survival knife in the world? And why is it a 12-inch machete? Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the KnifeCenter. Welcome to KniFAQ, episode 249 of the series where I answer all your questions, sharp or dull. Random word of encouragement from Thomas.
Bit rate.
Behind the camera there. I hope y'all's bit rate at which you are receiving this video is good for you. If you're new to this series, what we do is we answer your questions. We get them from the comments section. Let's go. Jeremy USNCR asks us our first two questions today. Hi David. The line between a 10 and 12-inch blade knife and a machete is blurry. Can you clear things up for me? We in focus?
Yes.
Is it still blurry? And also, which 10 to 12-inch long blade knives would you recommend for an end-of-the-world type scenario? Fun. Well, let's start with the first part of your question here. I've got two 12-inch machetes right here. And both of them are very different. Both of them are, machetes. And I think they illustrate where, even amongst what is officially a machete, there's a lot of differences. I mean, the Sword here, this is the Sword Kiwi machete, 12-inch carbon steel blade, nice and thin, compared to the Mai Parang Duku Changdong machete, much thicker and a much different shape. They're both knives though, right? So, to say where does a knife leave off and a machete begin, I think they're all knives. Like even a 12-inch or a 18, 24-inch machete is in some respects still a knife, But I think really what defines a machete is less an actual physical description and more kind of like historical context. Where did it come from? What was it called thusly, Most machetes were, tools, agricultural tools primarily first, although obviously there's plenty of examples of them being used as weaponry historically as well. So yeah, I don't think there is a line, at least in terms of physical descriptions. Now, as to the second part of your query, however, some say a 12-inch machete is kind of the ultimate survival tool. And I don't wholly disagree with that kind of idea, especially if you go with a thinner one like this Sword right here. They are long enough where you can do some chopping and slashing when needed, but they're light and agile enough to do smaller work as well. And that lightness plays into a survival trope as well. The saying being, the best survival knife is the knife you have on you when you need to survive. So part of that, there are many parts to it, but part of that is something that you find easy to carry and, you want to carry. If this Sword is, one side of the equation, maybe this Mai Parang here is, bulky enough that you might leave it behind one day. Then it's not a very good survival knife now, is it? Not saying if you're carrying it, it wouldn't do great at what it does, because it would, but I hope you take my point. So for the Armageddon thing here, the end of the world type scenario, this is obviously a hugely fantastical thought experiment.
It's never happened before.
Exactly. At least not to us, to Homo sapiens. It would be entirely environmentally dependent. It would also, my survival would depend on me being a lot more physically fit than I actually am, but hey, that's okay. Because this is fantasy after all. Let me hold a knife. Let's hold knives on the show. There are two that come to mind as sort of like a perfect fantasy answer. That is the Tops Armageddon machete right here. They call it a machete. This is a really thick knife, in my opinion. I wouldn't necessarily identify it as a machete if it did not itself identify as one. And the Condor Impossible machete. Both of these look like they would make fantastic movie props in like a Armageddon, end of the world type of story. They're both really finely made as well. Don't make that or don't let that movie prop assertion make you think it's no good. The Armageddon, just about close to an 11-inch blade, or 10 5/8, so closer to 10 and a half. Made in America, 1095 high carbon, $245. It's a lot of fun. The Impossible Machete, a bit more affordable, 131 and some change, just under 11 inches on this, and it's got like a properly like apocalyptic Mad Max look. And this would be easier to repair the handles over time than something like this sword right here. But that said, once the world is over, if any of us have survived, we've got the rebuilding of civilization thing to get through, you know? That pesky thing. Am I taking this question way too seriously? Yeah, probably. Doesn't matter.
It's not the last question yet.
It's not the last question yet. So in those types of situations, once you have survived the end and need to rebuild, there's obviously going to be some surviving still. Big knives, I think, are going to be less essential than other big tools. Bigger axes, big saws, whatever sort of industrial whatevers we can keep on using. The smaller stuff's going to be more usable when we're talking about knives in general. So I, personally, in this fantasy situation, I would go maybe for something like the sword here that I showed you right up at the beginning. I think this is a great little machete. It's fairly lightweight, it's quick, it's agile, you got a convex grind for durability. Yeah, I would go with that. Or maybe even shorten your requirements a little bit. The Becker BK9. This one is not my personal one, but I have beat the snot out of my personal one over these many years since I've had it. It was my first Becker knife I ever bought, actually. It has enough thickness at the blade or the spine to hit a little harder. It's less machete-like, more agile if you do need to use it in a self-defensive, whatever type of situation. So maybe that. But I would pair any of these bigger blades with a smaller knife. And in keeping with the mantra that Mora over really anything is the answer, something like the Pro S or the Bushcraft here in stainless, just because, would be good options because these are the two kind of most tactical of the Mora lineup. You've got the finger guards there to help with that. Those would be good options, be a lot nicer for the small detail work. Or, if you gotta have a folder as the complement to it, and I'm saying you do, I would go with, personally, something with the compression lock from Spyderco or Cold Steel's Triad lock, which are kind of my go-tos for, you know, longevity in the lock department, just like long-term dependability. The Caribbean, underrated as a potential like tactical-esque option. Big knife energy for a folder, LC200N, fully stainless, which is quite nice. Pokey enough when you need it, but versatile all around. You know, it's been a Recon 1 love fest here for the last couple weeks at the KnifeCenter here, and Recon 1 would be a great choice. Or if you got to combine your 10 to 12 inch machete with the Triad lock folder, I mean, there's never a bad reason to get out the Espada XL, is there? And in a way, check this out. The Espada XL is a 12-inch machete. Am I wrong? What do you think? The pocket machete, the Espada XL. I wouldn't want to rely on that as my actual machete, but hey, one could if one chose to.
Hey, let's be real. The end of the world is going to be about what knife you find.
Or the knife you have on you. Hence the survival adage at the beginning. Yeah.
It's the knives you find along the way.
I see what you're doing there. Excellent. All right, I think that's all my bullet points that I wrote down. I'm making sure I didn't miss any points I wanted to make. So I hope that helps. Actually, the first part of that question was, I think, actually kind of helpful. The machete versus knife line drawn thing. The rest of it was just fun. All right, let's get to the lightning round, shall we? First question is from Tactical Instruments 2. Which grind is best for survival? Oh no, you didn't lob that grenade and just leave the room and expect me to answer that. Man, I can remember the vicious back and forths out there on the internet describing these fantastical internet debates about which is best. I think the arguments I would see most often would be, between a full convex, as in convex all the way to 0, or a Scandi grind being best. Convex which is, ground like an axe, certainly known for durability. Scandi grinds work great on wood. Convex grinds chop really great. They both split well enough if you're needing to split wood, but convex maybe have slight the edge there. Something like a flat grind kind of splits the difference between the two. In the end, whichever one you're most comfortable with using and maintaining in the field is the best for survival.
Sorry for the cop-out.
Although maybe not a hollow grind. Hollow grinds getting way thin behind the edge might be, less of a good option in many scenarios. Not to say it would be better than nothing, because after all, the best survival knife is the one you have on you.
Along the way.
Next question, Mike Molina 9607. Can you put a convex grind on a factory flat ground blade like a cold steel Trailmaster? No and yes, I would say. I don't have a Trailmaster here, but I do have a Natchez Bowie from Cold Steel with a full flat grind. Convex is, we've been talking about it here. If you don't know, it's kind of shaped like an apple seed. It comes to a point. Think of like an axe. It's this gradual turn or curve as opposed to flat bevels. Basically, think like a sculptor. You have to take away metal from the outside to do that. If you're talking about a full height convex, you technically could, and by that I mean no secondary bevel on it. You can do a convex with a secondary bevel as well, but that's a whole other thing. So you could draw an arc from the spine down to the edge there. It would be very gradual, very subtle in this case, or if you wanted a more noticeable convex grind, you're going to be grinding up. You'll lose the actual edge height here to bring it down. So you could do that. It'd be a little easier to do that with something like the BK9 here, which has a partial flat grind, not a full height flat. This is 2/3 or so, 3/5, something in there. Because you've got these shoulders you could grind through on the process. Whereas if it was full flat, those would already be gone. So that could, or if you're starting with a knife with this type of geometry, it would be a little easier to do that convex grind. Should you? If you want to do it, yeah, why not?
But you can absolutely put a convex edge on it.
Oh yeah, 100%. You could put a convex edge on anything, even a Scandi grind if you wanted to. I wouldn't necessarily recommend going with like another secondary bevel on a Scandi ground knife, but yes, you can absolutely convex the edge itself. And my favorite tool for doing that is either hand sharpening with a sandpaper and strop or the Ken Onion Work Sharp, or any of the work sharps with the belt-based systems, because you have that flex in it. Really cool. You could also use a professional knife grinder, but if you already have access to one of those and know how to use it, you probably didn't need to answer this or ask this question. So that is still an option though. All right. Quick episode today. We're into our finalist question, which is, of course, our most seriousest question, which comes from Corey Thomas. I'm going to Mars next year on a ship I built out of household appliances in my backyard.
Good luck.
Did you build it out of household appliances that you found in your backyard, or was the backyard where you built it from household appliances? I'm being way too pedantic. I'm looking for a knife that can handle the abrasive electrostatically charged dust while being easy to sharpen on a rock. It should also be big enough to defend myself against any locals I come across. Any recommendations? Well, assuming I see you on the news next year, on like real news, having succeeded, or whether I see you on like, I don't have America's Funniest Home Videos anymore.
It's YouTube.
If I see you on an epic fail video on YouTube, that'll be one thing. But if you happen to make it, you're talking about homesteading, frontier survival, and self-defense, you need a 12-inch machete. I've been saying it all along. How about the Case M1 Astronaut Machete? They actually call it the astronaut knife. See, a machete is a knife after all. $249 for this with a sawback. This actually is a pretty cool knife machete though. It's a recreation of the originals that actually went up on the Gemini and Apollo missions. So I believe this knife has been to the moon. Not this one, but ones like it. There are many like it, but this one could be yours.
Along the way.
You gotta stop it.
Little freeze.
Oh boy. That's all we have time for today, folks. Episode 250 is next. We should probably don't have any plans yet for that. Should be like a very special episode. What should we do next week for our 250th, if anything? I don't know. Let me know what your questions are as well. We need your questions to keep the series going, so drop them in the comments down below. Let me know if you have any alternate options here for the questionnaires. What would your 10 to 12 inch bladed knife for the end of the world be? Love to hear your suggestions down below as well. And to get your hands on any of these knives, check out the links in the description, which will take you to KnifeCenter.com. While you're there, don't forget about our long-running Knife Rewards program or our new payment options at checkout, including Sezzle if you want to break things up into payments. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera. We're signing off. See you next time.